Chris, I don't know if you want to test. Let me put it to an eye. Did you want to test the share screen first?
Share screen?
Well, there's Mr. Geneau's presentation.
Is that already loaded up?
There should be a Microsoft Edge. It'll be a file there, should be in the background there. If you can't find it, I saved it on the desktop.
Hey, we're good, Councillor Neil. Sorry.
All right, everyone. I'd like to welcome everybody to the regular council meeting, in the town of St. Andrews, November 22nd, here in the W.C. O'Neill Council Chambers. The recording of attendance, we'll note again, all members of council are here with the exception of Deputy Mayor Akaji and Councillor Harland. And Councillor Blanchard is with us online, and Mayor Henderson will be joining us shortly. I want to take a moment to recognize that we are on the unceded traditional territory of the Peskotomuhkati people. And at this moment, I'll be looking for an approval of the agenda. Councillor Bennett, seconded by Councillor Heenan. Any disclosure of conflict of interest? Again, seeing none. So first off tonight, we do have one presentation from Mr. James Geneau and Ken Beaubien with the—
Mr. Chair, you still need to carry the motion.
My apologies. Back to the approval of the agenda. All those in favor?
All right.
The agenda is approved. Thank you, Mr. Knopper. So our one presentation tonight, again, Mr. James Geneau and Ken Beaubien with the St. Andrews Civic Trust are going to give us a presentation on the proposed study for the courthouse. So welcome, gentlemen. The floor is yours.
Just give me a second, gentlemen, to make sure. Paul, can you see the presentation?
I can, and you're gonna have to scroll it per page.
Sorry, was that last thing? I'll have to.
You're gonna have to scroll it per page, so like you'll have to just push it down as they go through it.
Okay.
PDF might not have been the greatest format, sorry.
It's
It'll work.
Okay.
Okay,
PowerPoint doesn't like Zoom. Go ahead.
go ahead. Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm James Geneau. This is Ken Beaubien. We're both from the St. Andrews Civic Trust here to present to you a proposal for a 12-month study on the courthouse and commons. There is a next slide, a little bit about tonight, the both of us. I won't get into a lot of details on this slide other than we're both working professionals who happen to be on the board at the Civic Trust and are volunteering our time along with the other members from the trust who are here on what we feel is a pretty important initiative for the town. Next slide. Agenda-wise, we're going to go over Ken's going to go over a bit of an overview of the Charlotte County Courthouse and Commons for everyone to just a level set. We'll give an introduction to the St. Andrews Civic Trust, which just to again level set everyone so you understand the organization. Then we're going to go into some of the current situations, the challenges, the opportunities with the current courthouse and common site, and then detail SAC's proposal, the objectives, the process we plan to take, etc. So I'll let Ken take it away for the first part. Thanks, Ken.
Great. Thanks, James. Thank you, councillors, for your time and attention this evening. So we're on slide 4. If you can go to the next slide there. Thanks. Just to highlight a couple of things regarding the courthouse and the common areas. One, just to emphasize that it is a important national and provincial historical site. It's certainly a very beautiful building and a nice green area that exists within the center of town, which is a kind of unique remaining property within the historic town area. And as well, the courthouse represents not only a history of judicial administration, but also a focal point for community events over the past 100+ years of history of the courthouse, and is in fact one of the oldest courthouses and operated for one of the longest times in Canada. So there's an immense amount of history and obviously a beautiful structure and space around the courthouse, and can serve as an important focal point for the community as well. Next slide. So the St. Andrews Civic Trust, if you want to just scroll through to the next one. I mean, one big point to highlight here is we just celebrated actually our 50th anniversary. So while I'm new to the town and is new to the being a member of the board of the Civic Trust, certainly the organization itself has a rich history of contributing to the built environment and the heritage of the community. And there's a number of kind of key projects that it's contributed to and worked on over the past 50 years. I think really what's worth emphasizing here is that some of the projects, it's not just about like paint colors or window selection, but really it's looked at, opportunities, for example, with the Niger Tea House, for example, is setting up and establishing a viable commercial property as well, where it wasn't just an owned asset by the trust, it became a viable commercial business, the restoration of the lighthouse as well. So there's a history here of taking on different types of projects with different outcomes and focusing on kind of positive community outcomes and viable solutions for these sorts of properties that can often present a challenge, because historic properties are often expensive to maintain, and you have to look kind of strategically at what can be done with them to find the best opportunity. Just to mention as well, so James and I might be relatively new, but the other members of the boards we're privileged to speak on behalf of, have in fact many generations of time here in the community and been a part of the community for many decades. So it's a really diverse group of people with different experience here in the town, different kind of educational backgrounds and roles in the community, but we're all very excited about this particular opportunity for sure. And as well too, we have a great access to network of experts from across Canada, be it urban planners, architects, people that we've worked with in the past with the Civic Trust, and a great resource available should we be able to move forward with this particular proposal. Next slide, please. So just to highlight some of the accomplishments of the trust over the past number of years, as I mentioned, the Niger Reef Tea House and of course the lighthouse as well. And when we look at these projects, we look not only at kind of the building and the built environment, but how the overall impact and relationship in the community, the National Historic District, and really kind of advocating for kind of a view of the public good of these built assets and really unique architecture of St. Andrews, not only in the Maritimes and New Brunswick, but arguably Canada as a whole. Next slide. So a couple of the challenges, and then James will talk a bit about the opportunities that really exist. There's a lot of great ideas regarding what can be done with this particular space, but I'd say one of the main challenges is, can we connect viability and kind of the financial side to this as well to sustain something? So, really that's kind of one of the challenges with these sorts of projects is people are passionate about the building, they're passionate about the role it's played in the past in the community, but there also needs to be a viability to it. So there can be a lot of great ideas, but how do you make it sustainable is kind of a key challenge, I think, with this particular property and asset. The other one too is like it's a grand space. It's obviously functioned as a courthouse, but you know, what is its purpose today? How do we better utilize that asset? So, you know, really for a number of years, arguably you could say it's been underutilized. So how do we kind of flip that equation and make sure it's fully utilized as a space within the National Historic District? The other thing that's interesting, and James has a great visual to show this, it is kind of a focal point within the center of the historic district. So how does that factor into decision making on the use and long-term viability for this particular site? And then the other part of this too is really providing an opportunity to kind of look beyond just the asset itself and looking really at the entirety of the community and building on a lot of the success that we've seen on Water Street as an attraction for both residents and for tourists as well. And that's really why we see a tremendous opportunity from the Civic Trust perspective in this particular asset, because it is in that hub of the community and really is an opportunity to kind of expand that view and experience of St. Andrews overall. So I'll stop there and just turn it back over to James for the opportunities.
Thanks, Ken. So the next slide, please. So now let's talk about some of the opportunities. So one of the first opportunities we see is as Ken identified, is that it is a central part of a large network of heritage attractions. So what we've plotted here on this map, you can see when you think about the tourist, the fabric of the different attractions. And I know that the consultant that did the report for the town felt a little shy to use that word, attractions. We feel very comfortable that heritage is an attraction. It is an attraction. It's what drives people to come to this town and to see our town. So we view it as an attraction. But we think of like the aquariums and botanical gardens like Kingsbrae. We have 3 museums. We have 4 whale watching outfits. But we have 128 federally registered historic places, which make up a big part of why we have the National Historic District. And the Courthouse and Commons, which is the black dot on that map, is the very center and kind of the heart of this network of different heritage cultural places. So we feel that it's important to look at that and the role that it will play. Next slide. The second thing is that it is near the geographic center of the Old Town Plat, which is very rare. So many communities wish that they had such a central space. In fact, there's some communities that are leveling old buildings to try and create a central town square or central park that would have this kind of walkability. It's kind of what we would say is that it's, you know, in urban design, it's kind of a real dream scenario to have a space that is vacant, that can actually be repurposed into something that can be accessible to everybody in the community. And that's what also makes it a very strategic space, not only just because it's in the center of town, but how it actually connects Water Street with the attractions that we have up on Prince of Wales with Kingsbrae, and then anything on the east and the west. Next slide. That positioning also makes it an ideal place to be an additional or an expanded venue for some of the great festivals and events that we have in the town. So we tend to think about everything happening on Water Street, or we might have something that happens up at Kingsbrae. The reality is that this space could actually be a connector between the two. So you could have expanded activities having to do with Indulge, Sparkle by the Sea, Christmas by the Sea, or Paddle Fest, just to basically be that central connector and drive more tourists to our town, and that would benefit the overall town economy. So those are some of the things that we're looking at. The other opportunity is that there are 2 National Historic Sites and the underused commons, and the underused commons is really, it's really the what could be the front yard, if you want to think of it, for St. Andrews, especially now that we have a goal of making St. Andrews more dense. The more density that you have, it's primarily apartments. The more apartments you have, very few people have a front lawn or front space. And so there's a real opportunity for this front commons area to be that place where people in town can go, congregate, relax, network with their friends, read a book, play chess, other things. So there's a lot of opportunity that we don't really look at on the commons area. So the proposed 12-month study timeline. let's get into it. So our proposal is that given the previous experience of the St. Andrews Civic Trust, that we develop a formal path forward for the Charlotte County Courthouse and Commons. We believe that we should leverage the current report that was done by the consultant and through the community consultations, but then work with stakeholders on behalf of the newly formed Heritage Advisory Committee to come up with an actual plan that is sustainable. By doing this, we would leverage the trust expansive network, but key thing here, and this is what we have it underlined, is develop a fiscally sound and independent option for its long-term preservation. When we say fiscally sound, we mean not something that is a continuous financial burden necessarily to the town, that it is something that can maintain, be a benefit to the town, but has appropriate funding sources tied to it. And then report back to the town council and key provincial and federal stakeholders in 12 months' time. Before I go further, I know there's probably people who are going, well, why 12 months? 12 months is mainly for 3 reasons. We are volunteers. We do have full-time jobs and commitments, so we can't dedicate our full days to working on this. So it is a volunteer effort. The second thing would be is that we need to get it right. So we want to make sure that we have the 12 months to really evaluate all the options, consult with the community and all the stakeholders, and look at all the financial options for funding. And then the third thing is that we actually have to work with the calendar of government. So you need 12 months to be aligned with the federal funding or provincial funding or grant programs. The company I work with, we do grant consulting for municipalities. So I know that there's a cycle of grants that come out, and there's grants coming out constantly for different projects and elements. So having those 12 months allows us to really get full exposure to those different grants that might be coming down the pipeline. So how do we define sustainability? Our approach is going to be looking at 3 things. Restoration of the current heritage infrastructure. The building is in good shape, decent shape, very good shape for its age. So we want to look at what is the cost to restore or bring it up to a certain quality. What are the enhancements that would need to be made to it to make it more of a destination or an attraction or a better experience for both tourists and for residents? And then what would be the cost for ongoing maintenance, operations, preservation, all designed around, the key thing, what is the benefit to the residents as well as to any visitors? When it comes to sustainable funding, we're going to be looking at all kinds of options, from local government to Parks Canada, federal or provincial funding programs. There are several programs for not-for-profits as well as for local governments, private grants, loans, related programs, family foundations, philanthropic donations, charitable giving bequests for anyone in the town who might like to leave a legacy here in the town. We'll also look at trust arrangements, which are very popular in places like the UK, where you establish a trust, and the trust through investments will fund the site. And also, let's be fair, on-site revenue generation. Is there an opportunity for this to actually generate some form of revenue to keep it sustainable and to pay for resources? Next slide. So to do this, the timeline. That's okay. So our proposed timeline is really we're using a stage gate model, which is in my work, we use this whenever we're evaluating a product and the product is going to go to market. And so you go through different stages to take the idea or the ideation or the idea you have and really validate if it's going to be something that works in the market. So what is it going to cost? What is the return on the investment? Is it going to be sustainable? These are the questions we're going to be asking in these 4 stages. So the first stage is stakeholder ideation. So basically, we're going to be asking stakeholders in the community what they have in terms of ideas for this facility. But we're not just going to be, it's not just going to be, what do you think there should be there? We're going to be using an intake form. Yes, it's great to have an idea, but we want to know how much is this going to cost? What is the benefit to the community? What do you recommend as being the source of funding? Have you recognized any grants? Have you had any contacts with any individuals who would be willing to fund this? So we want to make sure that we're vetting these, that it's just not a bunch of ideas with no realistic opportunity to be sourced. The second quarter is when we're going to focus on, does this pass what we call our fiscally responsible sniff test or financing sniff test. So is this something that could actually be funded by a federal grant, a provincial grant? Is it something that could truly be paid for through foundation or through another program? In the third quarter, we'll do a public consultation. And this is where we're going to ask, ideally at the courthouse, we'll have everything set up and ask both residents and tourists, is this something that you would pay to use? Is this something that you would go and see? Do you think this would add value to the community as both a resident and a tourist? So basically, is it marketable? And then the fourth will be the final feasibility. So we will take a final look at all the options and then review, validate that, yes, it be funded. And also what are the options for that funding? And then come up with the final master plan for what we'd like to propose to council. Next slide. So what will we deliver to you? Obviously, we'll be delivering updates throughout this process, but some of the key deliverables will be recommendations and options for future ownership of the space. Is it something the town should own? Is it a private not-for-profit who should own this? What does that look like? Options for usage as a space for both tourists and locals with a final set of recommendations in terms of the design and options that have passed both the stakeholder consultation as well as the financial review. Recommendations for funding vehicles of limited impact to town for restoration, enhancement, and sustainable long-term operation. And then finally, the high-level timelines and a proposed plan for execution beginning in 2025. The overall goal here is that we want to deliver a fiscally realistic plan with sources of funding that benefits the town without being a taxpayer burden. If I were to summarize everything I just said in the presentation, that's the goal. Any questions?
All right. Well, first and foremost, thank you. And sorry, I was watching on my phone as much as I could, but I was listening, I should say. It's pretty dark out there tonight. So thank you for the presentation. Thank you to the Civic Trust for your interest in assisting us with such a valuable asset that is very important to the entire community in this council. Hence why we're still here. So thank you for that. I will open up for questions, but I did have an opportunity to meet with a couple of your board members. So this probably doesn't come as a complete surprise, but I guess my concern is around just the timing of 12 months. And we did kind of talk about maybe a potential solution on that. And the reason I'm concerned over 12 months is we just set our budget for 2024. So if we wait 12 months before we sit down with you and talk about what the options are, plus do our own engagement, which we have to do as well. The reality is we're talking now 2026, which might be an election year. So I almost question if we actually get it done and it just doesn't sit there further. So I guess as we break out the timeline, I'm wondering if maybe it's a little early, but either Q2 or Q3, we sit down together and we say, what does this mean for us as part of the budget process? Otherwise, 2025 is not going to have anything really impactful, because I'm assuming no matter what we do, it'll have budget implications.
Well, our goal is to provide you with, really, if you want to think of it, 4 options. There would be town owns, town figures out the funding, and we're going to figure out the math on that and the grants that are available. We'll be truthful, Civic Trust or a third party private not-for-profit owns it, funds it through those grant scenarios. Combination of the two. So maybe there's a Civic Trust ownership of physical building, commons area of the town, and then a staged version. So, you know, maybe the town owns it for this period of time and then it gets transferred over to another organization so you can take advantage of the funding that comes from the 2 different types of programs that are out there. In terms of the timelines, definitely, I would say that at each phase we will be able to update you and provide an update to the council on, you know, here's what we've gotten from stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. I'm pretty confident that by the end of the summer, we would have a pretty good idea of what this is starting to look like, because as we're doing the consultation, we're also doing the research on what are the funding vehicles. So for budget purposes, we would definitely be able to give you something confidently by beginning of the fall.
Perfect. Yeah. No, that's because really the question is even call it 9 months, where we going to have a pretty good idea what you're looking to do, and is this something that this council is willing to support? Because indirectly at budget time, it's kind of when we need to almost know the plan. Doesn't mean we can't, but it's really hard once a budget's set for the year.
Yeah.
Council, any other questions from any other member of council? Councilor Hurdle.
Thank you, Worship. Just a quick question in terms of the timeline, the proposed timeline, and the request for us as well is this more a sense that we give you the keys, we see after 4 quarters, and then you propose what we propose with the updates? Is it more of an update or a consultation along the way?
I would expect we'd be working very closely with the
Right.
town as we do this. So obviously with Chris Spears and Paul and others, as we go through the process, obviously we want to engage the town because the town is our vehicle to get citizens to participate in the process. So I do see there being quite a partnership there, but also it really is up to what it is that council would like to see. I mean, we can give you a quarterly report. We could do a regular sit down so that everybody can get an understanding of what we're finding and what we're hearing. But I would expect that we'd be working very closely with the town as we progress with that.
Yeah.
Project.
My only concern would just be the timeline, right? Just to give you the time that you need to do to get it done.
Yeah.
Constant consultation will slow that process down too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Hurdle. Councilor Blanchard has a question online.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. And I think maybe less of a question now because you've sort of talked a little bit about some of the concerns with regards to timelines and things like that. Maybe just to comment then, what I did like about the presentation, certainly I appreciate what was put forward by the Civic Trust here. I think it looks good to me. I really like the focus on the commons area. For me, this needs to be a functional space for the community. There needs to be that ability to get out and engage and enjoy the entire property, I guess, if you will. And I really see a lot of that coming from the commons area. So I like the fact that it was highlighted here, and I'd like to see some real investment in that aspect of the project and some ideas and some recommendations for that area in particular. Thank you.
Thank you,
Yes.
Councilor Blanchard. Any other member of council? Councilor Heenan.
First off, thank you, gentlemen, for a wonderful presentation. And like Councillor Blanchard, I'm so happy that the Commons is included in that. It's been my idea for 5 years to have a use for the courthouse. I was on one of the first boards that was developed by Mr. Spear to find adequate means to support and supply a need that existed for the public in the courthouse. Every time you look at something, there's a roadblock. And that's what scares me about having a 12-month time frame, is that if a roadblock is hit, then we all of a sudden are extending this. I have worries because there's so many historical and different laws that exist around the courthouse that I'm afraid of roadblocks that's going to come into play, which is going to extend the timeline, because we all know, and I know from experience, that dealing with the courthouse is a very, 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 very hard example of what happens in the town. As soon as you go and do something with the courthouse, there's a roadblock. They can't do that because they can't do this, because they can't do that, because this money's not available because of this. That is my big concern with the time frame, because as the worship mentioned, we could be looking at this council not even approving what could happen to the courthouse if it extends. And quite frankly, I don't want to see another council, and I hate to use the word burdened, but I'm going to. I hate to see another council burdened by this courthouse episode, because it's been a burden of mine for 5 years, and I'm no closer to getting anything solved for it than I was 5 years ago. So that's my personal beef, and that's my personal concern.
Yeah.
And I thank you for listening.
Thank you. And I've only been in this town for, it'll be 2 years now, a couple of weeks ago. And I think that the history is that at one point, this could have gone to the Civic Trust or it could have gone to the town. It went to the town. Unfortunately, we don't have a way to roll back time and change that. I think that a lot of the original plans that existed had the Civic Trust taken over can be repurposed. Some of the discussions, there were definitely lots of discussions with different organizations at that time. And we've already had some conversations with different levels of government already on what are some of the opportunities that exist for it. But I'll be honest, it's going to be a combination. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a combination of different levels of government and different organizations piecemealing it together so that we can fund this. This isn't going to be, as I said, we do not want to come to council and say, this is a $2 million project, but we got you funding for 50% of it. That is not, that is not what we are planning to do. We're looking to say, this is a great project. This is the cost. This is what we feel that we can raise. And this would be the options if there was no burden on the town in terms of cost. This would be the options on the table for the town if they did want to do some investment or have some ownership. And we want to give options so that, I mean, Ken can speak on this. Having lived in Ottawa, there's tons of historic sites in Ottawa where Ottawa decided to let them loose. And they put them into RFP. Private developers bought them because they had these grandiose, unplanned ideas, and then they ended up back in the town's hands or the city's hands as a responsibility for the city. So we don't want that to happen. Sure, you want to add to that, Ken?
Yeah, sorry, just maybe to add one point on there is I'd say certainly there can be a number of roadblocks on a project of this nature, given the property, the history, et cetera. But hopefully we could, and the whole idea would be for the Civic Trust to work with the town, the council, the administration to basically help remove some of those roadblocks. So like our intention, like with James and I and the Civic Trust would really be like, if we are going to see and we identify challenges early, let's come back, have conversations with the town and council in order to remove those roadblocks as quickly as possible and identify where kind of those risk points are of further delay. That's how I would see it working, where
Absolutely.
there can be some soft consultations, of course, on purpose and funding, but also to a review on what are some of those roadblocks and limitations, where could we get stopped later in the process. So 8 or 9 months in, we have a great idea, we maybe have some funding, but here's something that makes this impossible. So we want to identify those very early. And we certainly agree that can be a risk in a project like this. Yeah.
Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Your Worship. And thank you, gentlemen. Again, I really appreciate your comments and your presentation. I guess my concerns, much like everybody else's, not so much the time, but looking back at Peggy's Cove over the last year and some of the negative publicity that the town's had, including losing their mayor, because they're like us, they're very heritage rich, and it's made them very community poor, trying to maintain a whole bunch of facilities that the small tax base couldn't possibly afford. And unfortunately, it's not a lot of venues that people pay to go in to see, much like the courthouse. So anything that you folks can do that would take ownership or take it under what you're proposing to be self-funding, I would welcome and would want to see you folks succeed, and whatever support that I could give you, I'd be happy to do so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Bennett. Anyone else? All right, so I don't anticipate council taking too much time to kind of get back to you. In fact, we're still debating, I think, having a conversation. We're meeting one regular or two regular meetings in December, but I think we'll probably be able to discuss this by the first regular meeting. So the first week of December, I think we'd have a response back for you. Is that a realistic timeline, Mr. Spear? And that way we can get going, because right now you're the only option on the table, to be completely honest with you.
Thank you, Brad. I feel so.
Yeah.
I feel I really nailed.
No,
that.
but
I really nailed that presentation.
I'd rather be honest. The other option really would have been, and I'll be candid and honest, is having a conversation with council. Do we go out to RFP, which basically be like organizations, even private businesses, or whatever, come forward and say, this is what we're proposing. That's the point where I think we're almost at, unless someone raised their hand to say, let's help, because I don't want to dive too big into the report that we received, but it did not have that sustainability. And to be honest, I didn't think it operationally really worked anyway. Hauling assets, bringing them out, but not to go back on that. The fact that you're willing to raise your hand, I think council's certainly going to appreciate that, and we'll get back to you very quickly on that. So
Perfect.
thank you for your time and coming out in this weather as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Well, we have some
Carolyn?
exciting stuff coming up. I always say this. Exciting stuff coming up. If you want to spend the next 2.5 hours with us, the rain might stop by then. No, not a good sales pitch, eh?
Your worship, we're having a little bit of technical difficulties with the feed. Can you give us 5 minutes?
Yeah,
Recess?
absolutely. And council, just so you're aware, we're probably going to kick off with planning so we can let Xander Gopin off the line as well when the time comes.
Good evening, everybody. We've run into some technical issues actually with hardware. So I'm finding out if this is better, but we may run into this problem again later tonight. So we apologize, but a better copy of the whole of tonight's meeting will be available on the YouTube channel early next week for anyone who missed the audio in the presentation or later. If you worship, just give me a second. CHCO, you don't have to focus on me. All right, your worship, I guess we might as well just get going and hope for the best.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Spear. So as I mentioned, it's kind of within the agenda, but just a little friendly amendment we've talked about in the past to allow Mr. Gopin to not be at the very end of the meeting. So if everyone's okay with it, I'll jump to Councillor Heenan for Planning and Economic Development.
Thank you, Your Worship. It is reference number PED 231010, bylaw number 23-05, subdivision bylaw, first reading. Town staff and planners of Southwest New Brunswick Service Commission have been working on the creation of a new subdivision bylaw for the town of St. Andrews. Provided with this report is a copy of the proposed bylaw number 23-05, subdivision bylaw. The new subdivision bylaw gives flexibility for varying types of development that could be proposed in the community. The following steps have been taken in the bylaw process. 1. Obtain views of PAC that happened on November the 8th, 2023. Public hearing of objections tonight, November 22nd, 2023. The motion before you is that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews grants leave for the first reading to bylaw number 23-05, subdivision bylaw for the Town of St. Andrews, and Your Worship, I so move.
Once again, seconder for this one. Got Councillor Hurdle, discussion. All right, seeing none, we had nothing as far as the hearing of objection, so I will call the question. All in favor of going to first reading, please signify by saying aye.
Aye, Your Worship.
That is everybody, so we are going to first reading. I will read the subdivision bylaw by title. So this is the subdivision bylaw. So the Council of the Town of St. Andrews, under authority vested in it by the Community Planning Act and amendments here too, hereby make the following bylaw. So 1.1 is definitions. 1.2 is purpose of the bylaw. 1.3 is streets and classes of subdivisions. 1.4 is lots, blocks, and other parcels. 1.5 is land for public purposes. 1.6 is municipal facilities. 1.7 conditions precluding approval of a subdivision plan. 1.8 subdivision application fees. 1.9 is schedules attached to and forming part of this bylaw. 1.2 is repeal provision. 2.11 is municipal engineering requirements. 2.12 is planning requirements. 2.13 is fire department requirements. 2.14 is municipal capital investment requirements. 3.11 is the right-of-way dimensions for class. 3.12 is land for public purposes for class. 3.13 is facilities required for class. 4.11 is right-of-way dimensions for class. 4.1.2 land for public purposes for class. 4.1.3 facilities required for class of subdivision. The page is sticking together. One sec. 5.11 is right-of-way dimensions for class. 5.12 is land for public purposes for class. 5.13 facilities required for class of subdivision. 6.11 is right-of-way dimensions for class. 6.1.2 is land for public purposes for class. 6.1.3 is facilities required for class of subdivision. 6.14 is lot standards required for class. Again, these are standard and local laneways. I guess I should be reading the top. 7.1 is standard for other access. So 7.11 is right-of-way dimensions for class. 7.12 land for public purposes for class. 7.13 facilities required for class of subdivision. 7.14 is lots required for class. We're now on to 8.1, which is standard for other access, which is a class B. 8.1.1 is right-of-way dimensions for class. 8.12 8.1.2 is land for public purposes for class. 8.1.3 is facilities required for class of subdivision. 8.1.4 is lot standards required for class. And then we do have an appendix A on that. And this has been read the first time, the 22nd day of November. Thank you very much. Do we need Mr. Gopin for anything else this evening? Okay, I think the expectation on this one is, since there was no debate, no one showed up to hearing objections, I think it would be safe to go to second and third reading versus drag this out over another month. So we'll do those both at a subsequent meeting. All right, let's go back in order. Obviously we have no approval of minutes or communications, no staff reports. That was done the other meeting. So the other introduction, consideration, passing of bylaws. The first one would be Deputy Mayor Akaji, who is not here. So Councillor Bennett or Councillor Weir, would one of you take over finance and administration for me? Oh, were you supposed to do it? I don't want to offend you. No, Councillor Bennett or Councillor Weir, then I just thought
Councillor
since they
Weir's
don't have,
unable to, your worship.
I guess what?
Does someone not have a microphone on? Sorry.
Conference from Friday, November 24th to 26th, 2023. At the conference, councils from around New Brunswick will be voting on submitting motions to the UMNB. These motions will be used to pursue changes with the provincial government. Provided with this report are motions for discussion and seeking approval at the 2023 conference. As each municipality has one vote on each motion, council should discuss each motion and determine how the town will vote at the conference. The motion reads that the council of the town of St. Andrews supports the following motions for the Union of Municipalities of New Brunswick Conference 2023. First, U2301 Meaningful Reserves, submitted by Grand Bay Westfield. 2, U23-02 Removing Barriers to Housing Regulations, 81-126, submitted by Grand Bay Westfield. Third, U23-03 Removing Barriers to Housing Environmental Impact Assessment, submitted by Grand Bay Westfield. 4, U23-04 Short-Term Rentals, submitted by New Maryland. 5th, U23-05 RSC Social Focus Mandate, submitted by Quispam-Sis. 6, U23-06 Municipality Land Grants, Zone 4. 7, U23-07 Cell Phone Service, submitted by Champador. 8, U23-08 Designated Highways, submitted by Grand Bay, Westfield, and Tantamar. 9, U23-09 Moratorium on Regional Service Commission Cost Increases, submitted by Zone 3. 10, U23-010 Removal of PST, HST on new apartment construction, submitted by the Board of Directors. And 11, U23-11 New Revenue Tools for Municipalities, submitted by the Board of Directors. And I so move.
Thank you very much. Seconder, just to get on, we got Councillor Heenan. So discussion on this. So council, it is a motion. I'm fine with that. Didn't really necessarily have to be a motion. I just wanted to have a discussion. So typically we have one representative that votes at the UMNB conference for these different topics. And we've never in the past really had all of council just weigh in on it. And I think that kind of like the Regional Service Commission on important topics, it's a best practice I like to do. Deputy Mayor Akaji will be the one attending this meeting. I thought it would be very good if we had some direction from council on if we had any concerns over any of these particular ones. So I don't know, Mr. Spear, not to put you on the spot. Was there anything that kind of jumped out at you? For the most part, a lot of them make sense, but I really, instead of talking about what's good, what's bad, I just want to, typically you've got a lot of yes votes, but if there's a nay vote, that's really what I want to concentrate on tonight. I don't think we need to go one by one through these unless somebody saw one they see. Maybe you could speak about the meaningful reserves of the 5 to 20% is actually a benefit for us. The other one is one of them required that it didn't require wastewater. I was just wondering of those ones in particular, if there's anything that you want to comment on, Mr. Spear, or any of them.
Well, thank you, Worship. The truth is, Your Worship, when they come to the meeting on Sunday morning, when they're to be discussed, there'll be a lot of discussion going on those. So I don't want to sway council too much because except for the background of the motions here, there wasn't a lot of information provided. The meaningful reserves would be a good one. There's no doubt about it. Just quickly, for operating reserves, you're only allowed to have 5% of your budget. But as we saw through COVID, that may not be enough. Some municipalities would like to increase that significantly. So if you have a major event like that, they have some background. The other ones regarding the housing and stuff are all good things. There's, without getting too deep into the weeds here, there's some points of some of them I question, but at the end of the day, I think they can be supported. And certainly, although the deputy mayor will be bringing the vote, everyone will be sitting together on Sunday morning and can discuss it if there's anything that comes out of those meetings that you have concerns with. And certainly feel free to talk to your other elected officials that you'll be sitting or seeing this weekend to determine if there's more information that's needed. But from my standpoint, they're all as good as is.
Thank you, Mr. Spear. Council, is there any concerns that you have over any of them? Again, we could talk about what we like about some of them. I don't think we need to do that. I think it's more is there anything we should be opposed to? I'm personally, overall, I think things like pushing back a little bit on the social focus mandate, like that's download of services onto municipalities. I think there needs to be that discussion. I think making values where the Regional Service Commission, which actually mandates what this municipality has to contribute to it, setting maximums and things. I think those are all good policies that need to be debated, but most of these are just direction for staff to start working on. But over to you. Anything comes up? Personally, there was nothing that I red flagged. I would tell Deputy Mayor Akaji, since she's there to read the room, if there is some major concerns that pop up, then I have all the faith in the world that she would vote in a way that we would all want her to. Of course, everyone's allowed to attend and sit with her as well, for the record. Mr. Spear.
Yeah, just there's one, your worship, that has affected us personally is what the 2308 on the designated highways. The motion reads specifically about increasing the funding just on the maintenance. But as you know, we've been trying to get capital costs for the designated highway for a few years now and haven't been able to. And so I would encourage council when you're up there, and there's several municipalities that are having the same issue, that you say that we wanted to see an increase in both operational funding, but also for capital funding, that we can create a plan moving forward and incorporate that into our asset management plan. And just to give you an idea, the rates have only gone up about 5% since I started 19 years ago on the operational side. And then the capital is hit and miss, as you know, that we had 2 or 3 years of getting a fair significant money. And now we've been 5 or 6 years where we haven't gotten any capital funding to continue that project.
Yeah, I think the main purpose of that is so it's a little bit more predictable what funds you're actually getting versus get a letter from the province saying we're not investing in it for 5 years is some of the experience that we've had. So that's a good takeaway. I'll mention it to the deputy mayor when we're up there. And again, anyone that wants to attend that when they're up there, I think most of us, we've got actually pretty good participation as a municipality. If anyone wants to sit with her, and I'm sure Deputy Mayor actually would appreciate the conversation at the table. But there is only one vote card. It's a yellow St. Andrews card that you hold up either way. All right, council, we're not seeing anything. I guess over to you. I actually would just not do the motion because it means you're voting in favor. It means we're almost voting in favor of them. I think I'd rather we've had a conversation. I can update. Over to you if you want to, but I would just table it. And I don't think we need a formal motion on this, but over to you if you'd like to make it a formal motion, just in case something pops up. Would anyone move to am I wrong, Mr. Spear? I don't think there's any reason why we would actually pass this motion. Am I wrong on that?
It provides, I think the good discussion's been good enough for your worship. As you
Yeah.
know, there's just another level of voting before it goes up. And so has to be approved at the UMB level. And even at that level, all they are recommendations to the provincial government. In these requests, they actually can't enforce any of these until the various departments support it and mark it into their mandate.
Yeah, my fear something pops up and then Deputy Mayor has a motion that says that we support the following motions. You're kind of handcuffing, right? Like that's my big concern on that because it says that we support them. So unless if someone would move to table, if you want, Councillor Neal, seconded by Councillor Heenan, discussion on the tabling. Okay, call the question. All in favor of tabling? And we'll just probably not bring that one back. That's reality. Thank you very much, Council, for going through that. We're on to the next one, Councillor Bennett. skip one. by
Your
a
worship, yeah, your worship, yeah, Councillor Bennett,
Yeah.
if you could flip back to page 26 on the package.
Or we can do
All right,
3,
there's
4 and
about
go back. We can have
1,800
some
pages.
fun.
No, he was so excited to
Keep
get to the
everyone on
budget,
the
that's
edge
all.
of their seats and the suspense of when we're getting to it.
Thank you, your worship. Reference FA 231017. Bylaw number 23-06, a procedural bylaw for the organization and operation of the Council of St. Andrews, first reading. The background reads: at the October 16th, 2023 regular council meeting, council set a public hearing of objections for the public to review bylaw number 23-06, a procedural bylaw for the organization and operation of the Council of St. Andrews. Council has proposed several changes to the procedures of council from the current bylaw number 16-03. The following steps have been taken in the bylaw process. First, we had a public hearing of objection, November 22nd, 2023. Then there'll be first reading, second reading, and then finally third and final reading. If the council is satisfied with the bylaw amendments and the comments from the public hearing of objection, council can move to the first reading. Motion that the council of the town of St. Andrews grants leave for the first reading to bylaw number 2023-06, a procedural bylaw for the organization and operation of the Council of St. Andrews. And I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Bennett, seconder. Okay, Councillor Neal, discussion on this one. All right, no one online. Okay, so I'll call the question. All in favor of going to first reading, please signify by saying aye. That is everybody. So that has, we'll be going to first reading. So here we go. This is bylaw number 23-06, a procedural bylaw for the organization and operation of the Council of the Town of St. Andrews as regulated by the Local Governance Act of the Province of New Brunswick. So by title, 1, authority, 2, definitions, 3, schedule amendments, 4, first meeting, 5, deputy mayor, 6, regular meetings, 7, special meetings, 8, staff meetings of council, 9, emergency meetings, 10, public notice of meetings, 11, duration of meetings, 12, meetings open to the public, 13, quorum, 14, council decisions, 15, mayor duties, 16, agenda, 17, recording of attendance, 18, changes to the agenda, 19, disclosure of conflict of interest, 20, minutes, 21, presentations, 22, staff reports, 23, financial reports, 24, bylaws, 25, motions, 26, councilors' comments. Got to remember to take a breath. 27, mayor's comments, 28, order, 29, mayor entering debate, 30, chairperson, 31, manner of speaking, 32, voting procedure, 33, suspension of rules, 34, reconsideration, 35, mayor, 36, town clerk, 37, vacancies on council, 38, application of parliamentary procedure, 39, official languages, 40, right to information and protection of privacy, 41, procurement, 42, repeal of previous bylaws, and there is a schedule, which is A, standing subcommittees. And again, no one at the hearing of objections, no communication received, no debate from council. I think we could probably put the second and third on the next one and get that one wrapped up as well. Thank you. And the next one, Councillor Bennett. Oh, sorry. And that was read the first time, the 22nd day of November, just in case I have to say that. Over to you, Councillor Bennett.
Thank you again, your worship. Reference number FA 231123. 2024 Town of St. Andrews budget. The background: the Council of Town of St. Andrews has deliberating over the months of September, October, and November on the 2024 budget. Provided with this report is a copy of the draft 2024 budget for approval. Please see staff report from Chris Spears, CAO Treasurer, for additional details. The motion reads that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews approves the 2024 general operating and general capital budget for the Town of St. Andrews, as well as the projections for the same for 2025 through 2028 be approved, and that the 2024 general operating fund budget totals $7,657,668, including a tax warrant of $6,261,554 on a mill rate of $1 0.1178 for each $100 of assessment for the St. Andrews, and on a mill rate of 0.5562 for each $100 assessment for Bayside and Chamcook. Council orders and directs the levying by the Minister of Local Government of said amounts on real property liable to taxation under the Assessment Act with the town of St. Andrews. And that the General Capital Project 2024 budget be funded by $968,852 from the General Operating Fund, $1,685,000 from the long-term borrowing, and $2,632,433 from government grants, and $439,715 from the General Capital Reserve Fund. And I so move.
Thank you. That was almost as bad as reading a whole bylaw, Councillor Bennett. A lot of numbers in there. Chris Spear is excited though over that. Okay, Council, I need a seconder for that. Councillor Heenan, let's open this one up for discussion. Councillor Hurdle.
Thank you, Worship. Just over to Mr. Spear. I know that in the last time we talked about the draft of the budget, we had some questions around recreation, and again, not to call into question Mervin's commitment to the community and what he's been working with, but I do see here a couple of line items that I just wanted to see if you can comment on. 65,000 for the video sign, and I thought that we had agreed previously to not pursue that, or perhaps table it, and as well as 22,000 for an outdoor movie system. And I thought again we decided against those two things.
Thank you, Councillor Hurdle. I thought the video sign, actually, I thought we had agreed to keep that. So
just to be clear, the video sign was the one in front of the arena?
yes.
Yeah, but you're talking about the movie one. Yeah.
And I thought the movie one was reviewed, to be honest. I thought we deferred it by 1 year. So if it's, yeah, so, yeah, I guess I just understood. So if it was meant to be completely removed, I apologize, but you're only approving a 1 year budget anyway. And so I understood you wanted to see how 2024 went out. So we just shifted it, but certainly this will all up for discussion again, 9 months from now.
Let's just put that in the parking lot. That we'll give it a good look because we're having
Thank you very kindly. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other member of council? Councillor Ware.
Thank you. I have two comments, I guess. First one is on the sort of the philosophy of putting the budget together. And it all goes back to this special assessment that Bayside and Chamcook gets from the province of New Brunswick for the highways, which we bear the cost of. We also pay our share of the cost of Van Horn Trail, the dog park, the wharf, all those things, which we have the choice whether we use them or we don't use them. And philosophically, I can agree with that. But with the highways, when one sits back and thinks about it, every councillor at this table has to use those highways that we are paying for with no contribution to the cost, because you can't get out of the town plat without using the highways. You know, you're landlocked. So I'm not saying that the people in the town plat should pay something towards that, but I think it is a major consideration in how we put the budget together, because everybody, whether it's coming to work in the morning or going to work elsewhere or whatever, uses those highways which the Chamcook and Bayside pay for. We don't have sidewalks, we don't have anything like that, but we pay double the amount, at least double the amount that the people in the town plat pay. And why it come up, or why I started thinking about it, is the rumor that the rate is going up again in the coming year, and we're going to be paying even more. And we're really paying it for everybody, the residents of the entire municipality. And I think it's something that in the future has to be addressed in the budget. It's not a cost that's ours. It's a cost for everybody. And I guess it's one of the reasons I feel that Mr. Spear should have more time to devote to the budget where he doesn't have constant interruptions at the town hall, that he can, and I don't think he is able to take 2 or 3 days and go in a room and think through this budget at the ideological level. And I think that's necessary if we're going to have good budgetary process. That was my one comment, and I guess both my comments. The other comment being that we don't have a budget officer. Our CAO operates as the CAO. He operates as the treasurer. He operates as the budget officer. And I mentioned a few months ago that, at some point in time, there's a point where it's going to break, and he's going to need some help, at least on a part-time basis, to pass off some of his routine duties. I know I called him today on a matter to do with the planning. Well, he immediately grabbed it, ran with it, sent me an email, and he gets those constant interruptions. And I think it will eventually affect us in our budgetary process. And, one person's only capable of doing so much. And, it's, he's doing a great job. But I think I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning and thought about this for 3 hours. And I said, my soul, this doesn't really work, this highway thing. And I think he also needs that opportunity, not at 2 o'clock in the morning, but during his workday to have these conceptual thoughts about the budget and how costs are shared and that type of thing. It's my comment.
Thank you, Councillor Ware. And I can see where you're coming from on that. If I looked at the old St. Andrews as a company that, say, I owned, and then I acquired another company and call it Chamcook Bayside, and I compare the two companies, and I look at my kind of call it contracts that I have, and I look at the roads, and I look at the policing, and I look at the waste removal, the new company I just acquired has got worse contracts. They're not as favorable. So we've had progress with the RCMP, and to your point, I think maybe it's not so much our budget as much as pushing back on the province to really say, what are we getting for the 41 cents? What are we getting for that? And we do know the average out of our taxes, we're closer to 20 cents in the old St. Andrews, we'll call it. Again, we got to really figure out names for these words, but everyone knows what I mean. And the same can be said for garbage removal. I know that houses are spread out further in the rural areas, but our garbage trucks to get here have to go through basically Bayside to get here, right? Through Bayside is closer to the landfill than we are. So your points are well taken. I think that again, the RCMP I think is going fairly well right now, and I'm pleased to see that. But we got a lot of work to do, and really at UMB it'll be very interesting at those meetings to hear what the other municipalities are saying about the 41 cents. That's really where you hear that we're not on an island, that other municipalities are saying the same thing. So, and I do concur that Mr. Spear does a fabulous job. And to your point, he has interruptions all the time. I try to stay away from him and minimize that, but I know for a fact that every day he's balancing multiple priorities, and the fact he's able to do such a great budget, and the fact that we're pretty close at year end every year. We don't have major shortages or overage. It speaks to the volumes to what he can do, but it also, to your point, is he is one person. So point taken there. Anyone else? Oh, you're allowed absolutely to have fault. There's not that many of us, so follow-ups are allowed tonight.
I guess my follow-up is on the RCMP contract. I really appreciate the fact that the cost has been brought down. But I think in Bayside, we're not going to get any better service than we did before. You know, we got an extra 2 officers, but I don't think they'll be spending any time in Bayside, any more time than they have in the past. So just my comment on it.
I concur, and really we could add to the budget, and I think we'll get the same service for the whole greater community. So I completely agree with that comment as well. Anyone else? Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, your worship. This question is for the CAO, actually. Just because like we're setting the mill rates for the town of St. Andrews, and we're only giving half a rate for Chamcook and Bayside. Have you been talking to the province? Have you heard any grumblings? You know, because like Councillor Weir said, you know, there's rumors that 0.4115 is going up this year. Is there any rumors on that, or do you have an answer for that?
Honestly, I don't have an answer for that. I haven't heard anything. It's not, I can follow up with the department, but realistically, they're like the rest of us. They have to have everything in so the finance department can get the property tax bills ready. So unless they sneak something in, which isn't impossible, I'm hoping they'd at least hold it for this year.
Thanks. Councillor Hurdle.
Sorry to belabor a point, but thank you, your worship. Just in regards to the video sign, the more I think about it, I remember the discussion we had around that. We sort of paused on it because we didn't want to have something that was lit up in that area. We didn't want to have like a neon sign. I thought in our discussion, we decided to go against even the video sign, but I'm relying on my own memory here. I wonder if the rest of council can recall that discussion.
Councillor Heenan.
Councillor Hurdle, and through your worship, I don't remember us making a decision on it. I remember one councillor saying, well, I hope we do get it, but we never really made a decision whether we were doing the sign or not. We canceled the outside movie theater. I remember that distinctly, but the sign out here was to be more discussion because there are the optics around the fact of what you just said about the sign, the lighting, etc. So I never remembered it one way or the other. It was on the budget sheet, but I don't think we ever said, let's put it through. That's my recollection.
Mr. Spears, a comment. I don't think it was officially decided, but it's one of those things to put in and then we can debate. But over to you, Mr. Spears.
Yeah, I was going to say, no matter what, it's not going to be carte blanche that you approve this budget tonight and on January 2nd, we'll have it up. Primarily because too, it's actually in violation of our zoning bylaw. And so there's a whole bunch of issues. It was requested, it's there. If it gets canceled for a myriad of reasons, then it can go into reserve funds or something or used to reduce the debt. But staff, a lot of these are going to have to come back to council for further instruction. It's just kind of a roadmap for next year, but there's still a lot of details to work out. I was even talking to our operations manager, and he is trying to come up with a plan B if the video sign doesn't work, to go back to something that's more to the traditional putting in the letters type of thing. But that's such old technology. You might have to build everything from scratch to get it, but certainly be assured that we aren't going to order that without really deep discussion with council, because frankly, we'd have to get a building permit from the RSC and they'd say you're in violation of too many bylaws. Good try.
Yeah, we'd probably have to send it to PAC, to be honest with you. And if we are going back to old letters, I would recommend that we put it high because some kids will have some fun with that. Councillor Heenan.
I'm sorry to bring up another point about the sign, but the thing was, I knew it was in violation of our signs because neon signs are not allowed in the town. And whether it's up here at the arena or in the town plat, I knew there was going to be discussions on it. So I really didn't give it much thought, simply because I knew there would be a lot of debate over it. So
we definitely need debate. Yeah,
that's my recollection of the whole night. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mayor Henderson, I've got a follow-up for you.
Sure, absolutely.
So just from the meeting, council, you did note that, as per CAO Spear noted, that actually thinks Mr. Acton can create something that looks good with the digital video sign, but was noted that the LED sign may draw criticism, and that there's still changes to the zoning bylaw that need to happen to allow it. But otherwise, council did not remove it from the budget.
Thank you very much. So more to come on that one. Anyone else on anything else? All right, Mr. Spear, you just don't want budget to
Well,
end.
you won't need me for another year after tonight.
So
So.
is that?
No, I just wanted to bring up, I tried to count. So I gave everybody a little handout. And unfortunately, there has to be an amendment. I found a couple of little errors between when the package went out. I sent an email out, but it was late this afternoon. So there's just a couple of formula errors. And long story short was I had to increase the expenses by 10,000. And what I did was increase the reserve funds contribution by 10,000. And then in the utility budget, I found where there's, you know how we have second year, we can bring second year surpluses forward.
Mhm.
Well, I did that for the same surplus 2 years in a row. I forgot to delete it. So I use it this year. We're in 2023, but then I noticed at the last minute it was still in our budget. So I had to delete that. So again, I adjusted the reserve funds in the capital. But the province is very succinct on how our motions are supposed to look. So if Councillor Bennett and everyone's okay with the budget, could read everything but the last two paragraphs of that page, and then the last two paragraphs will go on the next motion, then that'll get us in line on that first page. So read the first three paragraphs for the motion we're currently in. It'd have to be an amendment, and then we'll correct it. Then when you get to the second motion for the utility fund, maybe instead of reading the one that's there, so we don't have to go through a lot of steps, just read the one that's on the new page.
So this is a motion to amend.
Yeah, so right now it's a motion to amend, your worship. So we have to have someone, I guess, Councillor Bennett, if you don't mind making that motion.
Your worship, if it pleases you, I'd like to make a motion to amend the motion that I just previously read, FA 231123, and make the amendments to that motion. That is, that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews approves the 2024 general operating and general capital budget for the Town of St. Andrews, as well as the projections for the same for 2025 through 2028 be approved. And that the 2024 general operating fund budget totals $7,657,668, including a tax warrant of $6,261,554,000 on $6,261,554 on a mill rate of 1.1178 for each $100 assessment for St. Andrews, and on a mill rate of 0.5562 for each $100 assessment for Bayside and Chamcook. Council orders and directs the levying by the Minister of Local Government for said amounts on real property liable to taxation under the Assessment Act within the Town of St. Andrews, and that the General Capital Project 2024 budget be funded by $958,312 from the General Operating Fund, $1,685,000 from long-term borrowing, $2,632,433 from government grants, and $440,255 from the General Capital Reserve Fund. And I so move.
That cover for you, Mr. Spear? Seconder? Got Councillor Heenan. Discussion on the amendment. Kind of already had it. All in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye. That's amended. We'll go back to the original motion now, or the approval of the motion. We had a mover and a seconder, so I do need the vote. I just want to make sure no other comments. Okay, all in favor of approving the budget, please signify by saying aye. That is carried, and we have the next motion.
Just want to declare a conflict of interest on this one, in regards to FA 231117.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, you Councillor,
Just go on to
we've got the second part of the
Oh,
budget
sorry, the
one,
second part. Yeah, sorry.
Forgive me.
because it's pay your one.
I'm jumping the gun.
Good try.
Okay, a second, your worship, a second motion for FA 231123. The motion reads that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews approves the 2024 utility operating fund budget consisting of a total revenue of $1,172,990 and a total expenditure of $1,172,990, and that the utility capital projects for the 2024 budget be funded by $295,061 from the utility operating fund and $19,989 from the utility capital reserve fund. And I so move.
I got here late, as you know, and I didn't realize they were all written in front of us. And I thought Councillor Bennett was just a math whiz calculating all that on the fly, but it was the one that was placed so hard. Sorry. Could I have a second? Or that's amendment, actually. Do I need to have the original, or how do I do that for my?
I had Councillor Bennett read the amended motion
so-
into the record, so
Okay, so we're good there.
We're good,
So
yeah.
seconder for the amendment, Councillor Heenan, discussion on the amendment. All in favor of approving the amendment? Is that done now? Mr.
that's done, because
Yeah,
it's
'cause we
really
read it.
read into
Perfect,
the
thought
proper
so.
motion.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate that, council. And we have one more, I believe, for Councillor Bennett. Oh, sorry, yes, this is now, we're switching off that, yeah. We're on 98.
Thank you again, your worship. Reference number FA 231117. Subject curbside waste collection contract renewal for 2024. The background reads, as a result of local government reform, the multiple service contracts we are under for residential garbage collection need to be consolidated in 2025. We were hoping to do this for the next year, but with differing dates for when the various contracts expire and the new recycling service providers, the province asked everyone to renew for 1 year their current contracts. This renewal is for the community of St. Andrews, from Clark Road to Indian Point. Bayside and Chamcook are still under a contract through Service New Brunswick. Motion that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews approves the 2024 residential garbage contract with Southern Sanitation Limited be renewed for 1 year at a rate of $7,944.95 per month plus HST. And I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Seconder for that one. I've got Councillor Heenan. Discussion on this one. Councillor Heenan.
Yes, your worship. I do believe we talked this one through the last meeting that we had about it, and we really didn't have much of a choice but to go with this option. So I really feel it's a cut and dried motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Heenan. Yeah, it's an increase. It's a significant increase. But you know, we are looking ahead at other options, and I have brought it up at the Regional Service Commission as well. So they were favorable to investigating it further. Anyone else? Okay, call the question. All in favor of approving this one, please signify by saying aye. That's everybody. So that one has been carried as well. And I believe we'll let Councillor Hurdle come back. All right, we are on now to Public Works. So Councillor Blanchard.
Thank you, your worship. So reference number, excuse me, PW 231115, Proclamation for Nature Canada, restoring and protecting 30% of our oceans by 2030. The background reads, the town of St. Andrews has received a request from Nature Canada, a national environmental organization seeking to raise awareness of marine conservation in coastal communities across Canada. Their goal is to address the federal government's commitment to protecting 30% of our oceans by 2030. Please see the attached letter and proposed proclamation for more details. And the motion before council is that the council of the town of St. Andrews supports the proclamation for Nature Canada's restoring and protecting 30% of our oceans by 2030, and I so move.
Thank you. Seconder for that one. Councillor Hurdle. Okay, that's on the table. Discussion on this one. It is a motion we tabled for more information. There is as much information as Mr. Knopper could probably get in your package. Over to you, council. If you want to discuss further, I want to say if you still don't feel confident that you know the impacts of this one, you don't have to send anything at all, right? We can just make the option of just not sending anything either way. We've done that for issues in the past. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, your worship. And I don't want to beat a dead horse here. I did read through all the information that was provided by the clerk, Mr. Nopper, and thank you for providing that, Mr. Nopper. However, they did discuss from the letter from that gentleman about how they engaged youth and they engaged a bunch of people. But what it didn't say was that they engaged any aquaculture companies like Cooks or Maui. They didn't engage fishermen, local fishermen, and they certainly, from my knowledge, haven't engaged like our whale watching tourism ministry. And for those reasons, I would not support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bennett. Councillor Heenan.
Yes, your worship. I may not at this time support this motion. I'm just not comfortable with it right now. That's all I gotta say. That's all I can say right now, because I just, I read through it all and it's not a comfortable feeling.
So for you, Councillor Heenan, is it safe to say you're not against it? You're not for it? You just don't?
I just don't have an opinion.
So
Yes.
for you, again, kind of another option, Council, and do it as a whole. The option is for you to move to table it, someone second it, and then to be honest, we just don't bring it back. We don't have an opinion either way on it would be the way to go about that. However, if you want to send a message saying you don't support it, you can, or if you want to send a message, you do. But in your case, Councillor Heenan, you would rather just not.
I just like it to disappear.
So I don't know. I don't know how many other, just a quick show of hands of, again, you could make a formal motion to table, or does anyone else feel the same as Councillor Heenan, just for the record? All right, let's just make it a formal and then we'll do the vote. Do you want to make a motion to table it?
Yes, thank you, your worship. I would like to make a motion, please, that we table the proclamation for the Nature Canada restoring and protecting 30% of our oceans by 2030.
Perfect. Seconder, Councillor Bennett. Discussion on the tabling in case anyone wants to actually bring it forward. Councillor Blanchard.
Yeah, I mean, I have no issue bringing it forward. It's a program that's been established through the federal government. They're just looking to push forward, I guess, and maybe even publicize the program a bit more. Like I said, the federal government is in charge of consultation and doing that aspect of things, not necessarily this group. To me, this is more promotion of an existing program. So I don't have any issue with it. I think it's worthwhile and it's worth putting forward. So that's just the way I feel. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Anyone else in the tabling, or I will call the question? Okay, all in favor of tabling, please signify by saying aye.
Aye, your worship.
I'm counting 5 hands, so 5 to 2 would be to table this one. And council, the expectation is you've got all the information you need. We're just not going to send a response either way. Next motion.
Hmm. 109.
Sorry, your worship, just pulling things up here. Just got a slight.
No worries.
109.
109. But Councillor Blanchard scrolling.
Got it now. I'm there now. Excuse me. PW 231119. Subject is Canada Community Build Fund for repairs to Dock Road in Chamcook. The background is the town of St. Andrews has received funding through the Canada Community Build Fund for 2023. In order to receive the fund, a motion of council is needed to be added with the report for funding. Council has deliberated using $15,000 of this fund to complete the repairs to Dock Road in Chamcook. So the motion that is before council is that the council of the town of St. Andrews approves the use of the Canada Community Build Fund for 2023 to allocate $15,000 to conduct repairs to Dock Road in Chamcook, and I so move.
And once again, a seconder for that one, Councillor Bennett. Discussion. I know we've talked about this one a few times, but discussion is open. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye, your worship.
And anyone opposed? One. I will note that there was a nay from Councillor Neal, so that has been carried forward. Council, that does wrap up the kind of I just say motions for this evening and discussions. I just want to note, we will go through question period. Was there any need for closed session tonight, Mr. Spear?
There's a couple of really quick items, your worship, if.
You've tricked us before. No, okay.
Well,
We'll
I
go,
make it quick.
question period. Is Mr. Nopper still online with us? Has there been any questions submitted? I believe on the package, it was to email you, I believe is what the communication was.
Your worship, I've actually got Mr. Knopper's main computer here, so I'm just cracking open his email here.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
So who wants to do some bank transfers back?
Any,
Pizza after.
Only if it's all coming to me. There's no emails or comments submitted, Your Worship.
all right, and the audience doesn't look like they have any tonight, no? Anyone online, Mr. Spear?
No, your worship.
All right, so there is no questions. Counselor or deputy mayor comments? Counselor Ware?
Thank you, Your Worship. I think every counselor got my email on the decision of the PAC on the proposed business downtown. I still feel the same way. I have talked to Mr. Henderson out at the Planning Commission, and I'm currently studying sections 120 of the appeals to the Assessment and Planning Appeal Board. We've had some discussions about it. That's Mr. Henderson and I. And I have talked to a few people in town that are willing to get petitions. They're willing to take the issue and go with it. I don't think it's an issue that I, as a counselor, should head up. I don't feel comfortable doing it. And so I guess I'm just advising council at this point in time that there is action being contemplated, and it will depend on the group of people that are opposed to it. And the appeal procedure has very strict timelines, like 10 days and things, and most people didn't know about the decision within the 10 days. So that's all I want to let you know, and hope that I can turn this item over to somebody within the community within the next few days.
Perfect, Counselor. I appreciate that. So you're acting right now as a citizen. There was no kind of decision as a council as a whole, but appreciate you updating us to let us know kind of where you're at. But just on that, I have heard from the community as well. So there is a number of concerned citizens, to say the least. Anyone else? Counselor Heenan?
Sorry, to reflect on your comments, Counselor, where I've gotten numerous consultations on it as well. So I think that none of us are out of the realm of getting people not supporting it. But as I said, it's one of those deals that it is through PAC. So anyway, but as I said, I just wanted you to know that it is a buzz of conversation. And the other thing I'd like to mention is the positive feedback, mostly on the dog park. People are using it all the time. And I'm getting some very positive feedback, a little negative, but mostly positive. And I think it's a great venue. Anyway, thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Any other member of council? All right. I just wanted to thank staff. I know, Mr. Spear, you do have some support obviously down at with Mr. Lord and stuff, but all the work you did on the budget, it is greatly appreciated by council. You do make it easy to understand. Everyone has different levels of budgeting experiences and professionalism around it, but you make it where everybody is engaged in the process. And I do also want to recognize this council. Probably when it comes to municipal reform, probably one of the biggest challenges is probably to put a budget together. And I think everybody spoke very, very, they were very vocal about what they felt for their ward, but they also were very vocal on what they felt for the greater community. So it wasn't an easy process, but the fact that everybody came together to get that document, and very important document, done for the community, it just speaks volumes to everybody trying to look for the greater good for the entire community. So every one of you deserves to be recognized. for speaking up for your local residents, but also for helping to see the big picture as well. Honestly, it went far easier and cohesive than I thought it would have. So congratulations to all of you. We do have to go to closed session. So at 8:26, I'll be looking for a mover to go to closed session. I will need to state what reason it's for, since I don't believe I know the items. I'll have Mr. Spear, Mr. Knopper tell me what the reason is.
Yeah, so your worship, as per the Local Governance Act, section 1D, it is the proposed or pending acquisition or disposal of land.
Gotcha. Okay. Now I know what it's about. A seconder for, mover on that. I got Councillor Bennett and Councillor Heenan, all in favor of going to closed session. Perfect. We are going to close. Thank you everyone for attending and our friends at CHGO.
Chris, you'll need to pause recording.
All right. Could I have a motion to come out of closed? I've got Councillor Neal for coming out of closed session, and I'm going to give it to Councillor Gumashell.
Okay.
Yeah.
sure.
All in favor of coming out of closed session?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Motion to adjourn. Deputy Mayor Akaji isn't here, so we'll go Councillor Bennett and Councillor Neal because yeah. All right. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Thank you, council, for your time. And thank you, Councillor Neal, for allowing me to get a photo with my child.